Welcome back, my Jedi friends. And today I bring you the next installment of my People from History and how they loosely relate to energy. So this is where I combine my interests in all things historic and I make random and loose connections to the world of energy and what people from the past can teach us about now. And today I'm going to mention somebody who I think was an incredible leader back in the time. And this is a chap called Arminius. Arminius, folks. So let's get the context first. When was Arminius around? So he was there in the first century and he was Germanic. And this was in a time where the Roman Empire was at the zenith of its power. So we just had the great Julius Caesar had been taken over by Augustus Caesar, who is arguably the most pivotal and powerful and popular Roman Empire of all. He was known as the philosopher, and he reigned for a long time. And I would say it would have been the zenith of the Roman power. So they were at their most powerful, folks. And they were pretty much kicking ass everywhere. And they had this sort of rule in place where to keep the conquered tribes in place, they would take the sons of the conquered leaders and bring them up as Romans. And Arminius was one such son. So he was brought up by the Roman Empire as one of their own, even though they conquered the Germanic tribes and were making them pay taxes and really inflicting a lot of pain on the German people. And so after bringing up Arminius in Rome, they sent him to Germany to keep the Germans in check. And Arminius, and let's equate this to energy. So he started off being completely fucked over. His family were fucked over, they were fucked over, and the Roman Empire was so big and powerful that it didn't even dawn on them that after taking him back to Rome and bringing him up as one of their own, didn't even dawn on them there was any risk. There was an arrogance, a big, powerful nation, and little old Arminius that was just a small cog in the works. Or so they thought. So they thought. And what do I like about the story of Arminius? So let me summarize what's about to happen. He's going to step up. He's going to lead a revolution and he's going to pretty much sacrifice everything on a greater cause. It's the sacrifice that Arminius gave is second to none, as you will find out with this little story, folks, if you do not know about this epoch in history. So Arminius went back to Germany, and there was a pretty sort of lazy governor there that let Arminius get on with it. And Arminius planned a revolution. He planned a revolt. He could feel the discontent amongst the German people, who ultimately were his people, who he'd been taken away from. And he really felt the plight of them about being suppressed by the Romans. So Arminius organized what was probably, in fact, almost definitely, there were two massive reversals for the Roman Empire. So one was at a place called Cannae, and that was Hannibal, who was arguably, I probably will do one on Hannibal, but he took out a hell of a lot of Romans in a single day. And the only person that can compare with that, and as to which one was the most pivotal, that's arguable, folks, because Arminius did it with the Romans at the peak of their power. And he did such tragic, a tragic one-sided battle against the Romans that they never fully conquered Germany again, or they never really did anyway. This was why. So what Arminius did, there were two Roman legions marching in the Teutberg forest, and Arminius had very carefully laid a plan to ambush them. So he told the Roman legions or the leaders of the Roman legions that there'd been a little bit of disruption going on and diverted them straight into a trap. And to cut what is a very long and interesting story short, and if you are into ancient historical battles, it's well worth looking up. The Battle of Chutbog Forest with Arminius and Arminius. It's one of the most incredible reversals. They did so much damage on the Roman legions. Now, the Roman legions, he understood that they were more powerful in open battle because they could get formation. So the first thing he had to do was plan to a situation, a territory, an environment where they wouldn't be able to exercise their full power. Now, this is very relevant when we're working with energy because any nemesis, any person that is fucking you over, or anyone that is getting in your way or making your life miserable will always have an Achilles heel. There'll always be a situation where it's ripe to get them back, or ripe to get out, or ripe to get a favorable outcome. But you have to know what that set of circumstances are. And Arminius knew that. This was the most powerful army in the world at the time. Nothing could stop it. They were like a bunch of army ants. They took over everything, the Romans. And Arminius, with the ultimate betrayal, managed to take out two of their legions and absolutely decimate the Romans. It was a significant part of their military forces, around about 10, somewhere between 10 and 20% of their entire forces, which for such a massive empire at the peak of their power was a huge dent, and it pretty much stops them from getting back to Germany. Now they did, there was ramifications for Arminius for doing this, but Arminius thought that principle was more important than comfort. And he lost his wife over it and his kids. The Romans they kidnapped them. His brother had been brought up by the Roman Empire, and even he was against him. So his whole family was against him, siding with the Roman Empire, the biggest empire in the world. But Arminius fought for the people. He fought for the people that he'd grown up with, and he sacrificed everything to do so. And why I like Arminius, and I think that he's such a great example, is that not many people would be prepared to go to the level that he did. And here's the irony, folks. It's the same with most great leaders round about that time. Because he got too influential with the German tribes, he was ultimately assassinated because he was getting too powerful by his own people, not the Romans, by his own people. So, I mean, it's tragic, but why? I mean, you could look at Arminius's journey and say, well, look, why would you give everything for a cause that was ultimately futile because the Roman Empire still went on and on and on. But that, I believe, was a turning point for Roman Empire expansion. Because at the time, they were winning everything, they were conquering everything, they were unstoppable, folks. He took an impossible situation, and it was an impossible situation that incurred the ultimate sacrifice for Arminius. But he did it anyway. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He did it because he felt some sort of purpose. He did it because something wasn't sitting right within him. And he decided that it was better to be true to his heart than it was to be practical. Because from a practical point of view, it was lunacy. He lost everything. Lost his kids, lost his wife, who was paraded around Rome. She was captured and paraded round Rome as a sort of prize for this is what you get if you fuck with the Romans. So he lost a terrible amount. It was paid a terrible price for what he did. But what he also did was stop the most powerful force in the world almost single-handedly and pretty much capped. That was the most powerful time for the for the Romans. They were never as powerful as they were just before the Teutoburg Pot Forest. Now, there may be historians out there who will argue against me and say, well, actually, they were. There were times where the empire was just as big or as influential. I would argue against that. I would say that they were at their most powerful at that time, just before the Teutoburg Forest. And even had Augustus Caesar, one of his quotes was, Varus, give me back my legions. Now, Varus was the guy, the Roman guy, the head honcho who was looking after the legions, who Arminius fooled into diverting. He was too lazy and too untrustworthy and too unsoldier-like. He trusted Arminius too much. So, yes, he was a bit of a dude. And from an energy perspective, he shows that when you get purpose, that there's nothing that will stop you from achieving it. The ultimate sacrifice. Arminius is a figure who represents the ultimate sacrifice because there's not many people alive in the world today that would sacrifice their family for a bigger cause. It's true, folks, for the bigger cause, the bigger family, the bigger global family. And that was Arminius. And that's why, from an energy point of view, I find his story fascinating because he was a great warrior, he was a great leader, he was charismatic, he was tactical, and he was connected to a much bigger purpose than most people will ever get close to. So we can learn a lot from Arminius, my Jedi friends. And most of us will think there's no fucking way that I would do that. And that's probably true for 99.99999 recurring percent of the population. There's only a few lunatics throughout the course of history that would sacrifice everything for a cause, which was ultimately doomed to failure within their lifetime, but would be pivotal in the bigger track of time throughout history. So, folks, if you're German and you don't know about Arminius, well, you should know about Arminius because he was a hell of a dude. And from an energy point of view, it just goes to show that when you're fired up, you find a purpose. When you find an unjust cause that you want to fight, that's where a lot of energy can come from that, which is why our challenges can fire us up. It can fire us up, folks. And on that basis, makes challenges actually a good thing. Because if you went throughout your life with challenges and there was nothing to fire you up, you'd probably die early. And its causes, I'm not saying you need to find a cause in alignment with Arminius, but he is the ultimate manifestation of the type of cause that could fire someone up and give them an aligned purpose to live with. And that's what I believe that we can learn from Arminius. And for anyone else, I would suggest you look him up if you're curious about what I've said. His life story is unbelievable, folks, and a very interesting. The truth is often more interesting than fiction, and in the case of Arminius, that's very much the case. So, my Jedi friends, find your purpose. I'm not saying sacrifice your family. Don't go as far as Arminius. Maybe you could. Who knows? The point being, if you find a purpose that's big enough within you, it trumps everything. Absolutely everything, folks. And there's a lot of people that say, well, there's nothing more important than your family. Well, that is not always the case. It depends how macro you think. And yes, this is an extreme example, and a lot of people won't resonate with this. But that's why I think Arminius, his story deserves to be unfolded, which is why I have included it in my little historical comparisons, which I loosely connect to the world of energy. So, my Jedi friends, there you go. There's Arminius. May you study what he was about. And if ever you think that life is fucking you over, well, just look at his life story and then tell me what the problem is. You will have a different perspective on life. And my Jedi friends, should you wish for more of my random connections, my loose historical comparisons with the world of energy, then please do like and subscribe to this video. And if you would like another one, you will find it just there.